Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome out to tonight's weekly training webinar for the members of Tax Sale Support. I'm Shade Foray. I'm happy to have you with us.
I'm here as well, Steve Swenson. I'm excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, we do these every week, and we cover different topics. As I think most people have probably been here before, but if you haven't, you're welcome to ask questions throughout the event. We always have them recorded, and we always try to make time for questions if anybody has any. And so feel free to do that. We tend to cover topics either based on questions that we're getting or specific topics that people would like to see us cover. So if you have anything you'd like us to cover, feel free to let us know, and we'd be happy to try to put that into one of the trainings that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Tonight I think we've got a lot of important things to talk about, some pretty good stuff, so let's get going.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, as far as announcements go, there's not a lot except for to tell people that in terms of the October 3-day event, we're down to about, I think we've got 7, maybe 6 seats left. So if the event is something that you're still pretty interested in doing, we're getting back in contact with people right now that have filled out the form that we're interested in it. But if it's something that you want to do specifically, be sure to let us know here before the seats sell out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it's something you're interested in, all you really need to do is go fill out the form, and we'll give you we'll contact you, set up a time, and see if it's going to be a good fit. Really, with this event where we're only working with 10 people, me and Shade are also going to be doing some personal coaching sessions with those students as well. It's really going to be a limited group, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting, to throw off this big first event like this.
Yeah, I think it will be great. We're really looking forward to it. We like working, I think, with you guys, and we like doing it, especially when we can spend time with somebody and help them through the process, help them progress, watch them have success with it. Ultimately, that's really what we're after, and that's also part of the reason why we like what we're doing right now with the secondary program. We like the ability to help people, get to the money-making part of the investment faster. So some of the topics we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to start off just by talking about using your capital effectively, because I think a lot of people have a pretty good idea of what they need to accomplish with their capital, maybe what the most effective use of their capital is with this. But for some people, I think they're not really sure, and so it might be easier if we kind of just lay it out and make that easy for people to understand, so they know, based on about how much capital you're working with, exactly what you should do, what your options are.
Yeah, definitely. We're also going to talk about power teams and how to create a power team and get into some of the things that are involved once you start creating a power team.
Yeah, which will be important. This is a lot about time. I think it's about you valuing your time. It's something else that's important to remember here is that you're learning a skill, and the skill that you're learning is valuable. Okay, the reason why you put together a power team of people is not to make things expensive. I mean, certainly there's certain things you might be able to even figure out or do on your own, but the point being is that your time is so valuable, and that as you learn how to do this, that is a skill that is unique to you in that situation, and it's why you're basically there. So that's something to keep in mind as we go through and talk about some of these different topics. So I think the first question that we'd like you to ask yourself is, is there a right way and a wrong way to use your investment capital when it comes to tax sales? And the answer is definitely yes. You can use it. You can use your capital in bad ways, in ways that can affect you. I think that when it comes to different risks that you can face, not all risks out there are about just losing money. Some risks are about tying your money up into the wrong investment for a long period of time, because in a way, that could also cause harm if it's the only capital that you have to work with on certain things. So let's start off just by trying to give everybody a good idea of exactly what types of investors there are out there, and to give you kind of an idea of how we perceive things and what we would tell people to do. So we've got a couple different examples here of different investors, okay? And two numbers that are kind of important here that I wanted to put on here is more than anything to kind of give you an idea of what the person's trying to accomplish. So let's say we have a young couple. They are essentially, they're really in a place where they're starting out. You know, their life savings, let's say they've got less than $20,000 and they're both working hard. They've got about $7,500 put together to start buying stuff with. But their situation is obviously quite a bit different from, let's say, Investor B here. And let's say Investor B is a little bit older, and so they have more in terms of life savings. Okay, their net worth is up higher. They've got money that's probably making some money out there, but they know they could be doing a lot better, and they are looking for ways to do that. And so, you know, they've got about $50,000 in starting capital here. Now, a couple of things just to take note of here between these two people. Obviously, between these two, the people on the left are in a totally different situation where they are trying to put together more capital to work with because they've got a limited amount of capital. They're basically trying to build a retirement account, whereas I think the Investor B, it's more like they're trying to maintain or looking for new ways to grow something like the money they already have.
Yeah, I mean, Investor A, you'd almost look at it more like an income type opportunity where they're going out and doing real estate deed deals or flipping property so that they can take that $7,500 and make it into $20,000 and then $30,000 and just continue building it up, versus the Investor B who has already worked quite a bit and has a pretty good savings and really wants to take some of that savings and start earning better interest, maybe eventually get involved with some type of real estate as well. But it's kind of a different strategy where Investor B is looking to continue building his retirement and getting a better return. Investor A is really almost looking like this as a part-time job or as a way to actually earn income.
Yeah. Now, there's always exceptions. You could have an Investor B that for whatever reason defied anything we tell you, but for the most part, they've already made quite a bit of money. What they're looking for is probably going to be something fairly stress-free or hassle-free. These are not necessarily the people that want to invest a ton of time. They're usually the people that are more inclined to invest money, but they don't have so much time. They already see that as a valuable resource. Whereas Investor A, they know that they're going to invest time here in the beginning, and they're okay with that because they need to make that, you know, that $7,500 amount. They need to hit home runs with that. You know, they need to figure out a way to turn that into a lot more. So you can start to see some of the different ideas that come out as you start to look at the situations of the two individuals and maybe what their objectives are, because a lot of this will come down to what they're, you know, what they're personally trying to achieve. Now, it's pretty obvious both of them want to make, you know, they want to make money, but their needs are totally different. On the one case with Investor A, what we really have is somebody that is looking for massive growth and to be able to do it with short-term investing. They're looking for a way that they can buy low, sell high in a short period of time. They're looking for, you know, they're looking for a way to basically acquire property for cheap. Okay. Whereas for Investor B, they're looking for a good rate of return. Okay. They're not going to be quite as open to risk because they've got more money to lose. Okay. So they might not be so gung-ho. They're more concerned about the risk. So maybe they want to spend less time. They want something a little bit safer. They're okay with the long-term investment, Investor B is, because they've already got their capital. It's okay as long as it's earning a good rate of return. They don't care how long the investment takes. Okay, and they're looking for something that's going to be, you know, relatively safe and easy. So between the two, you can immediately get an idea of what's going to work for one and what's not going to work for another. In fact, I was thinking about it, and when it comes to actually collecting money, okay, when it comes to actually making money, there are really only a couple of ways that you can make money with tax sales. In fact, really, there's only 3 ways. You know, number one is you get checks in the mail when tax liens redeem. You know, that's one way you can get involved with tax sales and make money. Basically get those checks, they're going to have the interest rate included, and it's going to be a good rate of return. But that's about the limit of it. Pretty simple. A second way that you can make money is by selling property that you've acquired for more than what you paid for it. Basic buy low, sell high idea. And the third, which I was thinking about, is you can still make money either renting or leasing property that you've acquired. Okay, so it's a little bit different strategy here, but it's also a way that you can bring in income. But between those three methods, they pretty much cover most any of the ways you're going to make money with tax sales. It's usually going to be either with the lien redeeming or by selling a property or renting it out somehow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and most investors that we've ever worked with at least have some kind of an idea of what they want to do to begin with. So they'll say, you know what, I'm really interested in tax liens. I just want to put my money in a safe investment, know that it's making a good interest rate return, versus an investor who wants to either flip property or start doing some type of rentals or lease options where they're building residual income or making lump sums of income through buying and selling property.
Yeah, and you may have a pretty good idea of exactly what you want to do. You know, between these three ways of making money here, you know, you can kind of break these down and know that number one tends to be long-term, safe, and easy. You've got number two, with property, you're going to have a short-term investment here. There's greater risk when it comes to acquiring property, but there's also a greater potential for reward. You know, you have that potential there to earn, you know, great lump sum returns. And when it comes to renting or leasing, again, this is a long-term thing. But also, I think that some of the long-term real estate strategies have better overall long-term profits. So it's really pretty simple, I think, when we're looking at the overall objectives. If you're a deed investor, you're trying to buy low and sell high, and depending on how much money you're working with, you need to hit a home run with that. You can either do it with some smaller properties, or you can do it with one property, you know, that you've got to do really well on, but your objective is pretty simple. With liens, it's different. You're basically going to buy a bunch of liens, and they're going to start redeeming over the course of their redemption period. And as they do, you want to continue to reinvest, but the idea is to try to get that, you know, a good overall rate of return for your investment. So if we were to kind of look at the two investors and what they would need, the reality would be that for the investor that already had a lot of money, tax liens would work better. If they wanted to pursue tax deeds, they certainly could. But based on what we see normally, I would say, you know, based on what they're already comfortable with, chances are tax liens are going to work best for them. For the other couple, the only way you can accomplish what they want to do is through tax deeds, and so you automatically have to do that. And so keep in mind, when you're buying liens, you're buying them with the intention that they're going to redeem, that you're going to earn that high interest rate return. You know, that's your objective. And if you are looking for a property, you know, then we're talking about trying to buy deeds. So with that being said, like we were saying before, you're learning a skill here, so time really is your most valuable resource. And the more you learn and the better you get at this, the more apparent that's going to become. And because of that, you have to start looking at different ways that you can manage your time. In fact, if you've started to do a lot of due diligence, you realize already that you can spend a lot of time just doing simple research on tax liens or tax deeds.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the reason it's so important to really, you know, have time management or put some things in place so that you're actually scheduling time to work on your individual investments, and also even preparing for the auction closer to the date of the sale, so you're not researching property months out before they ever start. And so there's a lot of different things that you can do. Really, I think one of the best is to really find a regular time and treat your investment like a business. Treat it like an appointment. If you schedule it, if it's in your appointment, if you know when you're going to do it, you're going to get it done. And that's going to, of course, going to help you be ready for the auctions.
You know, also, once you've invested somewhere and you've been through the process there, reinvesting there will take you a fraction of the time because you already understand how it works, especially if you're dealing with something like an over-the-counter list. You know, let's say if you're buying over-the-counter tax liens. That'd be a process that you could repeat over and over again. So the idea is to nail a place down, you know, as you try some different places until you find one you like, and then stick with it, reinvest.
Yeah, definitely. And with some of the different states out there, like Florida or Texas or Georgia, that have auctions every single month, you can just continually invest in that area. Or there's other places that have huge over-the-counter list. And once you've got an idea of how the state works, you're usually going to be able to. It's usually going to be pretty similar in other counties. So once you understand how the foreclosure works in that state, how the quiet title works, and how you go about getting clean title if you're going to sell a property that way. Once you understand all that basic stuff, then it's pretty easy to continue investing in another county within that state, or even within that own county, like Shade said.
Yeah. Now, why don't we talk here? A couple of the things that some of these notes are, I realize that this is all written fairly small, and so it might be easier to just kind of tell you what some of it is here. But the first is to try to schedule a time to do it, so that you're not just kind of leaving it up to chance when you work on it, like Steve mentioned. The second thing that we're talking to mention here is about getting in or staying in the right mindset when it comes to investing. It's really easy, I think, to get into the wrong mindset when you get involved in certain things, especially when it's something new like this, where you're investing, where you're acting on the part of a wholesaler. It's really easy for that consumer mindset to kind of creep back in and to steer you off course. So a lot of times, just different things that help you maintain the right mindset, whether it be motivational stuff, whether it be music, whatever it is that works for you, I think is a good idea.
And probably the last one, and this one's really important, is to, and we're going to talk about it, is to choose your power team. Your power team is going to help you in your business. They're going to be there to help you build your business, and so of course using them is going to help save a huge amount of time. You're not going to be the best at everything. You're not going to understand everything, and so if that's a real estate agent, if that's some type of lawyers, you go through quiet title, whatever that is, even if that's a member of me and Shade by attending the webinars or going to the seminar, all of those are going to be members of your power team to help you be successful, to help answer those questions. And so as you start creating your business, putting these right people in place is going to be huge in creating a successful business.
Yeah, I think it really is a part of time management overall. It's to understand where you should invest your time and where you're wasting your time. And a lot of times that's where these team members come into play. Is you want to select individuals that are good at what they do, so that you can save time focusing on the things that you're good at doing. And so, some other things here that we want to mention just before we dig into the power team here is I first doubting people. Whenever you talk about tax liens and deeds, you're always going to get people that think it's too good to be true. It's normal, and we've been hearing it for 15 or 20 years. There's no doubt in our mind that it works because we've seen it work so many times. It's not even a question. It's definitely one of the more straightforward investments once you understand how everything works. But to people that don't know, all they're thinking of is too good to be true. They really don't understand what it is.
Yeah, in fact, I just spoke last week with my real estate broker. This was the broker that invited me, to become a real estate agent, 20 years ago. And I was talking to him a little bit about tax deeds and how it works, and he kind of understands a little bit, but he was even surprised. This is a guy that's sold probably hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate over the years, and understands real estate pretty well. He's been doing it for 40 years, yet even tax foreclosures were something that he knew very little about. And so even people that think that are real estate and have been involved in real estate probably don't understand how to do tax sale investing. And so once you understand how to do this, you can really do any other type of real estate investing, because if you can do tax sale investing, you can pretty much do any type of real estate.
Yeah, it really is. It's a niche specialty. It's a niche market, and so I think you're right about that. And keep in mind, this really is a skill that you're investing in when you're learning this. The last thing it's saying here is talking about starting small to get started, which is always good advice. If you are just trying to learn the ropes, if you're just trying to figure out if you trust whether or not this stuff works, Steve and I were once in that same position, and we started buying up tax liens just to prove it to ourselves, to see how it worked. And they didn't have to be big, under $100. You can buy small liens, which will teach you a lot about how the county operates, and will also prove to you and show you how it works.
Yeah, I mean, even with deeds, you could probably go out there and find a deed for under $1,000 that you could turn around and do a real estate deal and make some good profit on.
Yeah. In fact, there are lots of opportunities with property that we found for less than $1,000. We've seen property that we can pick up for $50 to $100. It really starts quite low, and there's a lot of opportunity out there when it comes to raw land. So. Teamwork, it's the ability to work together towards a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishments towards organizational objectives. It is the fuel that allows common people to obtain uncommon results. We've got Andrew Carnegie there. That was somebody who surrounded himself with a lot of the right people. What exactly is your power team? Really simply, it's the people that specialize in different fields that you need to surround yourself with in order to accomplish some of your investing goals.
Yeah, these are just the people that are there to help you run your business, help do all of the things that a regular real estate investor needs to have people to help them do. Yeah,
and so one easy way to kind of look at this is just to consider the idea of trying to build a house by yourself. Most people understand, or they can see the physical process of building enough that they realize that they can't do that, that it would take forever if you were trying to build like that. Most people don't have the specialty, the special skills to know each one of these roles. So it would take forever, and it probably wouldn't get done very well, if at all. When you do go to build something like a house, you always want to surround yourself with professionals. With contractors that understand what they're doing and that will do a good job on it. And it's for a couple of reasons. It's going to improve the quality, and it's also going to decrease, the time, especially if you were planning on doing it all on your own. We're talking about dramatically decreasing your time.
Yeah, and when you're looking at power team and different power team members, of course we're always looking for the best price when it comes to the business, but paying a little bit extra or working with a professional that's going to make sure that it's done the first time can really save a lot of money. I mean, we've even seen that ourselves where we've tried to go cheaper on certain things and ended up spending more if we would have just, we would have spent less if we would have had the right person there at the first time. So as you're going through, be sure to pick people that you can read reviews on, or you have good rapport with, because you want people that you're able to work with.
Yeah, and you want people that are they're going to be motivated by money. Certainly, you want people that are highly motivated. Really, just a couple of things here. Members of your power team are oftentimes going to need to be located in the same area as your potential investments. Okay, so for instance, if you're going to go through quiet title and you're going to work with a real estate attorney, you've got to work with a real estate attorney that's within the state, it's an attorney within the state that you're investing in. So if you're investing in multiple states, there could be different people that you might potentially need to add.
As you're selecting your power team, it's not something you can add these people as the need arises. So if you're, if you don't need a real estate attorney now, then you may not need to get a real estate attorney. So as you're building your business, as the need arises, that's when you can start finding these different members of your power team, is when you're actually going to need their business.
Yeah. Yeah, we can also talk about over-the-counter when it comes to over-the-counter investing. Because I see one of the comments is that that I tried over-the-counter, and some of the properties were junk. And I spent a lot of time going through several groups. That is one of the factors. I guess you could say it's one of the downsides of over-the-counter investing. is that there's going to be a higher percentage of junk properties. You're going to end up with more of those because by the time they get through that over-the-counter process, they've already been offered at a sale, not a purchase, and you get that repeating over and over again. You just keep increasing that percentage of of raw land that ends up in that group, and so I think you will find a lot of property that that is, well, I guess you're going to find a mix. I guess the other side of it is the difference between junk land and and what's not junk land. Although I'm sure Joanne probably knows the difference here between different types. But yeah, I think part of it is also when you're looking at land, being able to recognize the difference between land that potentially has value versus land that is it's garbage. Because it's not so much about what the property is sometimes as it is about how much it costs. And even properties that aren't fantastic, if you can pick them up for cheap enough, they make financial sense.
Yeah, I mean, even a building lot that's worth $4 or $5 grand, if you could pick it up for $50, well, that suddenly turns into a good investment. So it's going to depend on the area, the county. Some counties are going to have more junk than others. But even in going over the over-the-counter list in the last few weeks, as we've got these different lists, we've seen almost every type of property you could imagine on one of the over-the-counter lists or another. And so really it's just a matter of going through them and finding properties that could be good investments and disregarding anyone that's not.
Donna just was saying that she was asking if anybody knew about a feature that Facebook has called Marketplace, where they have things that are listed for sale. We'll have to check it out. I don't think I personally used it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they have something big that will pop up. That it could be an effective way to sell something like that. They've got so many people using their services that anything that they have would probably have pretty good coverage. Okay. Oh, also, you're going to add team members as the need arises. So you don't have to worry about adding any of these people until one of these needs arise, and then you can go through the process of finding one of these individuals. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can use, I think, one of the easier ways is if you use existing relationships you already have to get referrals to find somebody else. But if you're just at the starting point, then you might have to go through the process of trying to talk with some different people to figure out which one might potentially work. For instance, in the beginning, looking for something like a real estate agent. If you're going to start off, when we start to look at real estate agents, we oftentimes try to look at the realtors that are already selling property close to that area, which we can determine that on Zillow pretty easily. Whenever we're looking at anything in that area, we'll generally see other properties that are listed for sale currently.
Yeah, definitely. And once you find somebody like a real estate agent that you can work with, a lot of times somebody like that's going to be able to refer you to other people. They're going to be able to refer you to a handyman or a title company or an attorney or somebody like that that can help you in your process. And so, once you've established one of those, then that's when you can start looking for other referrals or say, hey, do you know somebody that can help me with this? And a lot of times, if they're a good real estate agent or they're good at their business, they're going to have their own power team. They're going to have other people that they use, and so they'll be able to refer you to and many times it's going to be somebody they're referring it because they trust them. So a lot of times it's going to work out.
Yeah, in fact, agents are almost always a good source for contacts on all of these types of matters. Different things that are related to real estate agents are always a good person to ask about. So some of the power team members we're going to talk about today, county officials, realtors, title companies, self-directed custodians, self-directed accounts, a little bit, appraisers, real estate attorneys, real estate clubs, and us, or a tax sale coach, trainer. The first, skip right past that there. County officials, these are probably one of the most underused resources that we see regularly.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is where we need to go when we're looking at a new area or investing in a new sale or checking out a new auction. This is where we go to get our answers. And usually, if if you call and you sound like you're an educated tax sale investor, you're not asking the basic questions, you're asking questions about the sale, usually they're going to be more than happy to do whatever they can. The biggest, I guess, resistance we've seen from county officials is when some brand new tax sale investor calls up and starts, expecting them to teach them how to do tax sale investing. That's not their job. Their job is to handle the tax sale and answer those kind of questions. And so when you come to them, and if you're on this call, you're going to be more educated than most. If you're on this webinar, they're going to have all of the knowledge. They're the one that knows the laws, the rules, and really they're a major untapped resource for us as investors.
Yeah, in fact, you're going to want to spend some time on their county website just searching for any answers that might be there. And before you actually contact them, it's also worth the time to take a look at their state laws for 10 or 20 minutes and read through them and just try to get an idea of how it works. Because, I mean, believe it or not, after all of the different systems that we've seen, there are still counties that can confuse us with their lingo, with what they say, or with with how different things operate. So, I think it's really best to get an idea so that you're educated on it. But then you can ask a county official, and they might be able to kind of break things down that you don't quite understand fully. Because sometimes it's just a matter of terminology. There are so many different terms for like a basic deed to a property. Or to they have different terms for kind of the foreclosure process in places. They're depending on where you're at, the wording they use could be totally different.
Yeah, and you brought up that point of the county websites. That's going to be huge. Don't ever plan on attending an auction or buying over the counter without going through all of the facts and the rules and the auction information that's available on their website. That's going to let, usually they're going to have all that information so that you don't make any mistakes, because they don't want people making mistakes either. And so be sure to go through all that information before you invest so that you have a really good understanding of how the auction works.
Yeah, in fact, it's a good idea just to go through like the state guides to tell you who's in charge there, at the tax sale, so that you know who to ask for. All right, so we talked about real estate agents for a minute. There are a lot of things that they specialize in when it comes to selling property, and they can be effective and useful in selling either property that you want to wholesale. They can still help you with that, or properties, just the ones that you're looking to sell more for market value. They can help you either way. I think it's just a matter of getting some kind of arrangement set up beforehand so that they understand, because they're going to know investors most likely. They may know other people that they'd be willing to purchase property. So, I think there's a lot of things that they can do, especially since they're already in the area. If you can pay them some money, if they can just make some money with you and understand that there's some income potential there, there's a lot of things that they can do in helping you save time.
Yeah, really, and even offer the real estate agent maybe a little bit higher commission in selling the property can go a long way in their motivation in marketing it. And a lot of real estate agents, if they've been in the business for a little while, are going to have a list of investors that they work with and that they take deals to. And so, a good real estate agent may already have several investors that may be interested in the properties that you're selling. Just by listing them, they're going to be able to bring buyers towards you, or bring buyers that may be interested in the property.
Yeah, which can save you a ton of time. It might seem like a big deal. I mean, I don't know how many times I've listened to people complain about whatever they've got to pay to the realtor, and that's understandable when you have bought a home and you basically had to get a loan on it, and you've been paying down that loan. And when it's like that, you're basically buying that home as the consumer, and every dollar counts. The difference here is that we're going to pay wholesale prices for these things, and so that's just not, a lot of these things are just not as important. Something like a few percentage points, 5%, let's say, of the deal, if you were to pay that out to an agent, is no big deal if it were to motivate the agent or help you sell it faster. In fact, I mean, if really the agent can sell the property potentially for more, I think that the ability to get it sold within a set time frame is going to be the most valuable asset there. It's more about their ability to sell it within a short time. So offer bonuses, offer performance-based bonuses. That's a good way to motivate people that are good.
Yeah, well, and even when you're looking at, it's all relative, because even if you were to sell a property on eBay or one of the auction sites, they're usually going to charge anywhere between 7 to 10% as far as the selling fee. So you could pay 7% or 8% to a real estate agent that does all the work. You don't have to pay them until they sell it, or you could go ahead and list it through some type of auction and could even pay more. So it just kind of depends on the individual. But a real estate agent can definitely be a big benefit for you, depending on the type of property that you're looking to sell.
It's also important to remember that on a lot of transactions, real estate agents only make 1 or 2% of the money that's actually collected on that after it's divided between all the parties. So offering an agent something like a bonus of 3% or 5% something, that kind of stuff, makes a huge difference, I think, in the amount of money that they can collect and make, and it's a good way to motivate them. Now, a couple of things that I think the agent's going to be important for is giving you a feel for the market area, for what's selling, and for what you might be able to get for a property in terms of market prices. When it comes to wholesale is less about what the agent. Wholesale prices are more about what investors are willing to pay, and so that's an amount that you're going to need to set between yourself and with the investor that you're going to be buying through. But keep in mind that the idea behind doing it that way through an investor is to make the transaction faster and to be able to repeat the process quicker. All right. Title searches. We get questions about title searches a lot of times. People have all sorts of questions about title searches, about whether they need to always do title searches, whether they're helpful, I guess, what the title searches are ultimately going to do for them. And really, there's a lot of options today that didn't even exist a few years ago. So I think that it's wide open for whatever people want to do with title searches. It's cheaper and easier now than ever.
Oh yeah, I mean, back in the day, you'd go to your local title search company and have a title search done. And what's available now is there's just different online companies. There's different types of title searches. What we recommend is if you feel you need a title search, get it done. There's certain things that you can research and find out without having a title search done, and there's also different types of title searches that are only $30 that will give you some of the information that you're looking for. Really, when it comes to tax deeds, and in almost every tax deed property we're looking at, and really title searches should only be done on tax deeds. You could do them on tax liens if you want, but it's not necessarily something that we've ever done. But when it comes to tax deeds, if it's something that you feel like you need to, then it's definitely worth doing. But what we're really looking for is any other type of governmental lien. That's what we're looking at when we look at the title search company. When we look at the title search, of course, the owner information is going to have some bearing because of the foreclosure process or who's on the title. If there's more than one person, that just means that there'll have to be more than one letter sent out. But really, there's a lot of different options out there, and so, anywhere from $30 to $300 you can spend depending on the type of title search and the company you want to use.
Yeah, and also a lot of the deeds you're looking at, well, at least in some cases, the counties may already have a title search that's been performed on the property, and they will sometimes provide a link, in the county records so that you can download that title report. But I think, like Steve was saying, if you feel like you need to, you certainly should. It really is about, I think, your overall degree of risk, the type of property you're buying. If you're spending a lot of money, and I guess a lot would be if it feels like a lot to you, then it would be worth doing it. But primarily, what a title search is, there's nothing really magical there, which is kind of how I used to think about them. It's really more about looking at the property's history and going detailed into the property's history. In fact, that's really all what warranty deeds are all about, is being able to look at the property history. But essentially, it's about going into that property history and letting you know anything related to the property itself. When it comes to title searches on some of our properties, on raw land, we're less likely, because raw land seems to have fewer things. Well, raw land, I guess, can have all of the same types of things against them, but if we're only spending, let's say, $500 for the piece of property to begin with, then we're going to limit the amount of money that we're going to sink into it, in terms of risk, because we've already limited our risk by investing in a small amount.
Yeah, in addition to that, anything that's pulled out of the title search, in one way or another, you can get through county records. Essentially, it's all part of the county record system. Now, if the county has that online, that may depend. But, what we're really looking for is just to make sure there's not any other type of governmental liens. And so if we are looking at a building lot and we may be afraid that there could be a city lien, then we could contact the city and find out if there is a city lien, and feel pretty safe investing in it without having the title search done, just like Shade said, because we're not investing a huge amount of money into the property. If we're looking at some other type of single-family home that we're going to be bidding on a higher price at the auction, then we may want to have that done. I guess the biggest drawback is paying for title searches on property that you're not going to win at the auction. And so as you're limiting that, you're going to want to limit those to properties that you're very serious on and that you plan on bidding on to a certain percentage.
Yeah, I think we're generally really careful about any kind of money that we have to expend, before we've acquired anything, because those are the types of fees that add up pretty quickly. About the only fee that we really would go along with that is something like an auction fee. If they have something like that, but even then, a lot of times we don't get charged to participate. But yeah, I think it's also worth noting too that you can get pretty good at just pulling up county information about the property and being able to determine everything you need to know. Something else that is a factor, I think, when we're looking at properties, if you can tell that the property has a fairly simple ownership history, it's also less important to us. Again, like Steve mentioned before, these properties, they've been foreclosed on through judicial foreclosure. So through the courts, that has wiped out or extinguished everything attached to the property. So it is just those other government liens that can potentially be an issue, and you can contact those other parties to find out more about it. So I think a lot of times most of the information is contained there in the county records. But we're starting to see a lot more title search companies online, and title searches are getting cheaper and cheaper, and as they do, it may become more feasible to do them more often. So if you're going to choose a title company, there's a couple of ways that you could do it. There are title companies located everywhere, and most likely you're going to end up using a title company closer to the property in question. You can hire certainly a property company. I guess they could do a title search anywhere. I mean, essentially, they have access, I think, to most records and shouldn't have a problem doing it. But it seems like most of the time when we look into it, we're looking into it local.
Yeah, the local title company, unless it's a big online company, a local title company is going to be best if you're hiring one versus, if you live in California, you live in Florida, you're going to be better off in finding a title company within there or one of the online companies. And the online companies tend to be quite a bit cheaper. So if you're hiring a title to do a title search, a full title search, it may cost $200 or $300 if you're hiring it from just somebody out of the yellow pages within that area. It's going to be quite a bit cheaper if you use one of the online options where they'll still do a full title search, which means that they're going to go through and most of the time not only use the computer to get that information, but they're actually going to research it themselves. So they're going to verify those things to make sure that they're all true. That's part of the reason you're paying that extra money, is because they've manually gone through and made sure that the title report is completely correct.
I hadn't really thought about it a lot before now, but your title search companies, your title companies, they are a part of an industry that has changed a lot, and that is continuing to change. I mean, just 20 years ago, the only way you could get this information was through a title company, essentially. It may have been public information, but they were the ones that were basically tasked with being able to go out and get that information. And what's happened over the last 20 years is that we've seen property records, online record search capabilities, and databases available with those counties, which is making it possible for the average person to do more research, which I think is why we're seeing the price of the title search drop down, and it just continues to drop. And it's also why we see more and more of these companies popping up. This right here is an example. I mean, this is like an expanded title search, and this is really more of like an old-fashioned title search. And expanded title searches generally go further back in time, and they may look into other aspects of the property, like mineral rights and.
Yeah, the expanded title search is going to really have pretty much everything, and compared to the prices of doing it within a company, local company, they're going to be quite a bit cheaper for having a full title search done. And another time that you may need a title search is when you get to the point of actually listing it with an agent and selling it that way as well. That may be something that's required as well. So, as far as if you're planning on spending a lot of money and you want to have a full, expanded title search done, this seems to be a pretty good service. We've had our students use it. We've seen some, different results on it. It seems like they're a pretty good company. And then NextAce and SearchQ, these are two companies that do title searches for around $30. Now, with these particular properties, you do need to have an address, but they pulled up a lot of the liens on the property and the past ownership information with some of these title searches. So for the price, they tend to be a pretty good alternative when you're looking at additional information.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, I think I think that your online companies are going to be the best option now, because I think that they probably have access to as much record as they need. Now, self-directed accounts. I don't know. Does anybody here? Well, I guess you guys can answer if you want here. But I don't know if anybody here has a standard IRA, 401k that you've thought about potentially getting set up so that you could invest it in tax liens or tax deeds. Because it's something we haven't really talked about a whole lot, but it is something that's getting easier, it's getting more common, and if you have an account, if you have an IRA invested in something else, it's probably not performing that well, because I don't think I've ever talked to somebody, at least not in the last 10 years, that was just impressed with how well their account was performing. The majority of people have either lost money or it's not keeping up with inflation. I haven't really talked to too many people that have traditional retirement accounts that are happy with how they perform.
Yeah, and once you take it over to a self-directed account, you can use it to invest in the tax liens. You can use it to invest in the tax deeds. There's really a lot of different options, and it actually works pretty well as well with our secondary program. Because we can work directly with the custodian to transfer those properties or liens, and it makes it sometimes a little bit easier than even going through the county. So, if that's something that you're interested in, we can of course refer you over to a good company.
Jonathan, you'll have to let us know. Jonathan sounds like he set one up 5 years ago and he got kind of feed to death. It sounds like, which they've
gotten better. The company that we're referring to now, it's the fees are nearly nothing. Even to get it set up, I think is only a couple $100.
Yeah, it's definitely getting cheaper as there are getting to be more and more companies that are out there, and so hopefully it's one of those things that will progress. Because the fees would could absolutely kill you. But I think the idea is to get a fairly simple process. If no one has oh yes, yeah, checkbook control. Yes, now we also we absolutely suggest a self-directed custodian, and the reason why, if anybody's unsure about this, the idea behind this is you basically would transfer your IRA into with a new provider that does these self-directed accounts, and essentially the custodian is the party that's responsible for the transferring of funds. And the reason why it's important to have a custodian as part of it is because if you make any mistakes in what you're doing here with the transactions, you can end up getting taxed, basically penalty taxed, like the way you would if you were to withdraw it early. Essentially the same thing that can happen. So it could be really expensive if you if you're making mistakes. You don't want to make mistakes. You want to run everything through the custodian to avoid that. And checkbook control, essentially, people are able to set up LLCs within their accounts that can get them set up with checkbook control. But then they're not really so much doing it through the custodian as they are kind of doing it on their own. I think there's probably better options out there to avoid mistakes or even work more closely with custodians.
Yeah, and the custodians have gotten better as well, especially ones that are working with tax sale investors. So it's something that they're well aware of. They're better off. You know, part of the problem with the beginning, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, was the fact that just the custodians and getting the checks to the county in time and all of that kind of stuff really caused a problem. And that's the reason kind of the whole checkbook control. Now that's something you can still do, but just the laws and different things that have cracked down have made it a little bit easier to just work directly with a good custodian that can transfer those funds either to the county or to a secondary provider or whoever to help you get those accounts rolling.
Yeah, and Jonathan, we'll in fact I'll pull up an email here, so remember I'll send you we'll email you over information for the company that we've been working with.
I think we have their information on the website as well underneath our links page.
Oh yeah, let's see if I can pull it there. So I'll see if I can send that up over to you. But yeah, the basic idea though is that as those redeem, you're going to put those back into the IRA. You basically grow it tax-free. You know, that is the appeal. The appeal of it is being able to make the high rate of return that you can earn with either liens or deeds, and being able to earn that tax-free essentially is really what we're after here. An appraiser, somebody that you could end up needing just to get overall appraisal done on the house. This is normally going to be done more in association with lending or financing. It seems to be where more often where an appraiser is used.
Yeah, I mean, usually you're just going to use an appraiser when you're selling the home, refinancing the home, trying to do something like that.
And a real estate attorney, like we mentioned before, a real estate attorney, we mentioned needing a real estate attorney in order to complete the quiet title action on these properties. And they can also help out with other, I guess, other things you can do here with the title. But if anybody's wondering what quiet title is, I mean, I think the official definition would be a proceeding to establish an individual's rights to ownership of real estate against one or more adverse claimants. What it really is, quiet title, is this: when you have a warranty deed on a property, that warranty basically is that the property is free and clear of any kind of liens or encumbrances. It's basically a deed that states that it goes back to the original ownership here of the property down to, I guess it's been searched that there's nothing that could potentially be owed there. When the county forecloses on a property because of delinquent taxes, they create a new deed so that they can transfer ownership of the property, but they don't create a warranty deed. What they create is a standard tax deed. It's like a quitclaim deed. It is, it's what you might call a clouded title. You know, in some cases, it still conveys full ownership rights, but it doesn't have a warranty attached to it. It doesn't have any kind of guarantee with it. So, in other words, you could sell a property just by signing over a quitclaim deed, you know, if you wanted, but that's a little bit different from a warranty deed. Now, the reason why a warranty deed is important is because it's required on properties that people are getting financing on. So if they need to get a loan in order to buy a certain property, the lender's going to require them to have title insurance. And the only way you can get title insurance on a property is if it has a warranty deed. That's basically where the title company is insuring the transaction. They've researched the property, and they will insure the transaction because they believe there are no liens or encumbrances against the property. And they'll basically guarantee that with the transaction. A quiet title action is the legal process we go through to turn a tax deed or a quitclaim deed into a warranty deed. So it's basically the way to get that warranty applied back to that deed, to get a deed that you could sell to anybody. And if you have that warranty deed, you could sell it through a realtor to anybody. Whether they were, they could get lending, they could get financing on the property, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really just kind of a process. Every state's going to be a little bit different. You could probably actually do it yourself, but most of us don't have the knowledge and the ability to take a property through that court system. So if we're here in Utah, to actually do a quiet title without using a company or an attorney. And one thing to also mention is there's companies, especially in areas that have a lot of tax deeds or do a lot of quiet titles. There's companies that specialize in it. You can hire an individual attorney to go through it. But really, it's just the attorney notifying everyone and setting a court date to go before the judge and show that you purchased this property and that you've set notices to everyone, letting them know that you're going through the process of getting a warranty deed, and really just take it before the court. So it can take a couple of months. It can take even longer than that. We've heard of places in California it's taken over a year in some places. So it's just going to kind of depend on the individual property and also where the property is located, and also the cost can determine a little bit depending how much history is on the property as well, or how many additional owners may be on the property. But really, that's just what the process is. Generally, it's going to cost anywhere between $500 to $2,500 to have it done.
Yeah, and essentially, what you're trying to figure out, and I think when you're trying to consider whether or not you should go through quiet title on a property, considering that cost, figure that it's going to cost at least the $500, probably closer to $1,000, $1,500 or somewhere in that area. And like Steve said, the more work that the attorney has to put in terms of like sending out more letters to more parties, the more expensive it gets. So the more simple the ownership history is, generally the more simple or easy it is to go through quiet title. And you can tell that sometimes when you look at the ownership history on a property. If you look back on a property and you can see that the last time it actually went through a transaction, it was a warranty deed. And it's been 20 years since then, and this is the first thing that's happened. That's a really simple ownership history. In fact, because that right before it was foreclosed on here, it still had a warranty deed. It still had that warranty, so there's really not been anything that's happened aside from this foreclosure. And so you really need to think about how much additional profit you're going to be able to earn as a result of it. Is it going to make it worth it to do, versus being able to just sell it wholesale? You've got to be able to collect the additional money in order to make it worth it, which might be the case on some nicer building lots, or certainly with a lot of properties with improvements. A lot of times it would be worth the time.
Yeah, it's really just going to depend on you and the individual investment. If you're just flipping lots and you may not need to go through that type of process. If you're, like Shade said, you've got some type of structured property, single-family home, you want to sell it for top dollar, you're doing some rehab on it, then it could definitely be worth it. So you can look at each individual investment and decide, am I better off wholesaling it? One thing as well is most states are going to have a certain time frame where the deed will automatically become a warranty deed. For example, in Florida, it's 4 years. So let's say you were to purchase a property and you were renting out to 4 years. Well, at the end of the 4-year period, you would automatically get a warranty deed because you've been the owner for the last 4 years.
Yeah, which is not a bad strategy, I think. If you're talking about buying and holding it, it kind of does that anyway, just by virtue of owning it and paying the taxes. Now, there are some companies that actually offer title insurance without getting a warranty deed on the property. In other words, they'll offer title insurance so a person could get financing on a property. They are basically tax title services is a big one. Clear to sell is another one. But this is basically a way to avoid the long process of the long process of going through quiet title. It's a way to do this a little bit faster, but it still has a cost. So I think it's a matter of kind of weighing the cost.
Yeah, and this would be good if you were on to maybe finance one of the properties so that you could use that money for other investments, or you have a buyer that's interested, that's ready to buy, and you want to be able to get financing for them. This is going to be a way to do it. Essentially what they do is they go back and they research the entire history like a title company would, and essentially based on that research are able to issue title insurance on the property. And so there is an expense involved between $2,000 to $3,000, but if you're looking at even at, let's say you have a $50,000 or $60,000 home that you want to get financed, it could be a pretty good investment, or a pretty easy way to allow you to sell that to someone else and get top dollar or higher dollar for it.
Yeah, in fact, if you bought a property and let's say that it was completely livable, right then it was sellable as soon as you bought it, it might be a good idea to go through one of these companies, because you could move a property pretty quickly using a service like this. Certainly a lot faster using a service like this, than you would trying to go through quiet title first.
Yeah, with either one of these services, within 30 days you're going to be able to sell the property with title insurance.
Yeah, which is really pretty fantastic. Other investors and partners are another resource or part of your power team here, and this can be anyone from people that you're working with that you bring deals to, or maybe other investors that you end up selling your properties to. After all, the investors that tend to specialize in buying these types of properties, they're the ones that specialize in taking properties through the quiet title process. So you can decide on your part whether you want to, be involved with that process or not. And if you don't want to, then having partners, having other investors that you work with regularly is a good way to speed up that process of selling it.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit off the subject, but me and Shade are creating a new program where our members can actually go out and participate in sales for us as a company and purchase properties that we're going to be able to turn around and sell to our members, and kind of help with that process as well. And so that's something we can look at as well. If there's investors out there that may be attending an auction and plan on bidding on property, it may be beneficial to you to bid on properties for us as well that we can go ahead and offer to our members.
Yeah, it's basically a way that we wanted to, it's a way for us to reach out and to be able to get more property in more places, but it's also a way for members to be able to make some money, for going to the sale. So, they can kind of get that, both parts, they get the experience of it and they can make some cash. Property management company, if you pick up any real estate that you plan on keeping long-term in terms of renters or anybody you're going to be collecting regular payments from, a property management company is a must, and they're going to be local as well. Handyman or some kind of contractor is going to be handy, because there are so many different little things that that you'll end up needing done on property. So it's good to get a regular contact with that, and then also just cleaning services, to get houses ready or to clean properties up.
Yeah, and that can include, mowing the lawns and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, in fact, that same individual can be the person to put a sign up in the yard for you, and maybe get you newer photos of the property, and that's something that's worth paying for. To be able to get a sign up in front of the yard, to get good pictures of it, all those things I think are money, and you need to look at that as part of the investment. You need to account for that in when you're looking at your overall profit and costs.
Yeah, and when it comes to an on-site evaluations or taking photos, for pieces of land, most of the land that we've purchased over the years, we've been pretty confident in the information that we can get. But when it comes to structured properties, me and Shade both recommend that if you're going to buy any type of structured property, you want to get at least a current photo of the property, because the outside of the property is going to be at least a small indication of the inside of the property. And so there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Shay talked about a handyman. Finding a handyman that can drive by and take photos of the property can be beneficial, and usually they don't charge a huge amount per dollar per hour. So that may be a little bit cheaper way. You can, of course, put an ad on Craigslist and say, hey, I've got these 6 properties. I need photos taken. I'll pay somebody $150 to take the photos, and I can pay by PayPal or Venmo or anything like that to be able to take care of the payment. But getting that current photo, getting that current evaluation is going to be crucial if you plan on investing in structured properties, because the last thing we want to have you do is invest in some type of online auction and the roof's destroyed, or the property's been burnt down, or something has happened within the time that you could see the Google Street View versus when the property is now, where it could totally affect the price.
Yeah, in fact, really, I would say when it comes to buying structures completely sight unseen, I would say about the only times that we've really been comfortable doing it is when we've been able to get the property for cheap enough that the land itself is worth that price.
Yeah.
That's basically, kind of what it comes down to. And that's also one of the reasons why raw land sometimes can be, again, another one of the benefits of investing in raw land is that raw land isn't going to change so much. There's not that need so much there for an on-site evaluation in order, before you could possibly buy it.
Well, and once you own the raw land, you can earn residual income off of it by seller financing it. You've got so many different options, especially if you're paying a low dollar in picking it up. And so that's something that we and Shade always talk about. Not being afraid of getting started with land, buying land. Just because it's a great way and also an easy way, especially if you're not within that area, to evaluate, to bid, and to purchase, and then of course to turn around and sell as well.
Yeah. These are just some of the internet-based services that are available to you. With putting us up there first. We've got new lists that are up there for September, and really, we're here to help you throughout the process here. We want to do anything we can. So if you need any kind of help, please, email or text. Sometimes the fastest ways to get a hold of us. Telephone calls don't always, just because got a lot of calls coming in sometimes. But we have really tried to make an effort here to be on top of getting in contact with anybody that asks anything. So let us know if you need any kind of help, and we'll do whatever we can here to help you. If you have properties that you're considering or that you're not sure about, you can send those in to us, and we'll give you our assessment on them and let you know if there's anything to watch out for. But other than that, we'll get this up, and if you want us to cover a specific topic, I know there were questions here about the over-the-counter deeds. If you want us to cover something like that here for the future webinar, you can let us know, and we'll try to let you know which week here we'll plan on doing that. So thanks again, though, everybody, for joining us here tonight. We will plan on seeing you here soon.
Yeah, have a great week.